So we'll be talking about services, dependency injection, and what the two are. And let me go back to draw IO first. Let me just draw something here real quick as I share my screen. All right. So we can now get started. So right here, I have a diagram of the app component, and this component contains other three components, because like we said, every component must be added to the app component, or even a child of the app component. So right now, each and every component is added there. All right. So we still have a product component here, and the work of this product component is to show all the products. And then when you click on an individual product, then you're supposed to be taken to the detail component. And inside the detail component, you can choose to update the component. So assuming I want to get data that is right here. So I have some data right here, which is needed by the update component. So if I was to get this data using the normal way, the first way that we use to learn component communication, we use input output. So if I was to get this data, then it means that I have to pass it from this component first to this component, and then pass it to this component again. Then now our component here can now receive this data. This data is traveling a lot to get to our update component, and that is an issue. Why? First, the product component, the product details component have no use of this data. They don't even know about this data because it's not data that they need. Only the update component needs this data. So we are passing data to components that don't need this data first. And secondly, there's something called prop drilling. This is in React. is when you have to pass data through so many components in order to get to the destination component, and that is a bad practice. So for this case, we need to come up with a way in which this data can still be passed from the app component to the update component without it traveling through the product and the product details. So now, this way is what we call a service. So a service is just a provider of something. So in our case, these are service that is going to provide us with data. So instead of having to pass this data from the app component through the product details, we can update this data somewhere, and then the product component reads this data from that place. So now we haven't passed this data through a necessary component. We just have a central point that we are passing this data to, and then we are reading this data from that central point. And this is a better practice because first, you have reduced the passing of the data, and second, you have the service independent. So it doesn't depend on anything else, and this component can also read this data from here. For example, if this data was, let me add another component here so that we can also understand this. I'll just change this to add product. Now, if I add a product, I just need to send this data to the service right there. And the product component just need to know about this data or read this data. So data doesn't have to travel from add product to app component, then to products component, because why is it going to the app component? The app component has no use of a new product. So the only component that wants this new product is the product component so that it can display it. So you can just update the service here. And then instead of having to pass the data through all those components, you can only pass data to the component that needs it, or the component that has said that I need this data now. So that will be easier than having to pass this data through unnecessary component which don't care about the data and have no use of the data, just updating it to a central point and also reading it to a central point from a central point. You can have different services. For example, if your app is subdivided again into modules, which we have not yet looked at modules. Let's say you have products, you have orders, you have shipment, you have payment. You can have different services for those components and only pass these services to the component that need to get the data from this central point. So you can have different services. Right. So we are going to build something like this because we already have the product component from yesterday's. Let me see. So this is what a service is helping us with. First, it's just a class. Everything is in Angular is always going to end up as a class. So it's a class that can handle the business logic and share the logic data with different components. So it's just a central point whereby we can get the data from and also update the data to. So that's what we'll be doing today, communicating between different components without the need of having that parent-child relationship. So yeah, that's what a service is, as simple as that. Instead of having to pass this data this way and displaying it to the app component and displaying it from the display student component, we just pass this data from the add component to a service, and the display can read this data from the service. That's what a service is. And that's what we'll be talking about today. We are not yet to talk about the DI part, that is dependency injection, but when we get to that part, we'll talk about it. So first thing, let me uncomment this and comment this. All right, we have our product there. I need to comment more things here that are not necessary for today, like these ones. So these ones. Cool. We have this, and this is doing well. Now, I'll be adding a new component whereby we can add this. We can add a new product, and this product can be displayed. But this time, we are not using input output. We are going to use services. So unless there's a question up to this point, we can now go on to the coding side of things. So let me see if there's a question. Yeah, Obed.
Okay, child component, and now you want to pass data to the immediate child component. Is it which would be the best route to use? Do you pass it first to the service, then to the child component, or you pass it just directly to the child component?
Okay, you can use both. You can use, you're asking if I have a parent component, I want to pass data to a child component, the first child component. Which approach
Yes.
I'm supposed to use? A
Yeah.
service or an input output, right?
Yeah, it's an immediate child. So which option is better? Should I
For
pass
an
just directly?
All right, for an immediate component, you have the chance to choose between input and output, but I'll advise on services for one reason. Services will help you test your code easier compared to using input output, because the input is from another component and it's going to another component. So testing that can be a bit tricky. But if the service, because a service can be tested on its own, and if it can be tested on its own, then it doesn't depend on anything else. There's no that tight coupling. So I would advise on services more than input output, but still input output is a valid solution to that. So it's still applicable in that situation, only that if you want to think now the bigger part of scalability, testing the application, you might end up in services. Okay. Any other question? All right. So the first thing that I want us to do is build a dummy service first. So I need to have a folder here. I'll call it services. And in this service, I'll just add a service. And for this service, I'll just log something to the console. So it's just be a logger service. So again, a service is a class. There. And this is a class that can have method. So this is a method, and we can reuse this class. Maybe you can say that since this is a class and we have exported it, um, let's just import it and use it somewhere. Let's see if that will work. So we can import and say log a service. Yeah, that's the service. And we come here in the body. And the first thing that I will do is say let log new log a service that way, or it's no need of that let this angle. So I can just say log um hmm, should I logger dot log? Let's see if that works. Why is this not working? Product logger service expected keyword. Can I do this inside a construct? All right, I'll say first thing private logger of type logger service. Sorry about that. Then we can now say log or L is equals to new log. Okay, why is this? No, we don't have to use. Why this not accepting? See, let me see. Logger size. Then I can say L dot. Just a minute to confirm this syntax. So must we do it inside a constructor? Let's see. Then we'll have LTM of type logger service. It's empty, but we are reassigning it. This dot L is equals to that. Can I say L dot this dot L? Okay, I'm trying to instantiate these using a class. Let me see this dot L dot log. All right, yeah. The issue is we have to do it inside the constructor. So let's see if this works. And we can go to our terminal right here and we'll see hello from a service. So yeah, it works. But is it the best way? No. So this is not wrong. It will still work. But assuming I have something else like x and is equals to a new service still, it's a logger service again. And I still say this dot x is equals to a new logger service. Okay. And then I can also say this dot x dot log. That way still works. I'm going to see here is two log messages. But one thing is if I log something from here, or even if I try to check if this dot x is equal to this dot L, what will happen? Who can tell me the output of this? Someone, give it a try. Is it a true? Is it a false? All right, someone.
I think it's a force.
Why?
Because they are equal types, but not equal value. Equal type, but not equal, no, equal value, but of equal type, or different types.
No one else wants to try. All right, let's say this. So we get a false. So someone was right. And this is because one thing, these are two different instances, because what we are trying to do here, because we have the new keyword, we are trying to get an instance of the logger service. So these two are going to be equal instances. And is that the behavior that we want? Probably not, because if we have two instances, it means that we don't have anything common. Assuming these are two components and we instantiate them, it means that each and every component is running its own instance, and these two instances are so separate. So this means that communicating maybe to a service with a different instance and this other component as a different instance, they won't have anything common. So now here comes the idea of dependency injection. So this is completely wrong. I'll just do away with it. I mean, it's right, but it will work, but no, don't use that. So DI, or dependency injection, comes from something called the principle of inversion of control. So this principle says that a class should not instantiate this, should not instantiate an instance. So instead of instantiating, it's supposed to delegate that duty to something else. So what is this something else? Is what we call DI container, or dependency injection container. So instead of now creating the instance, we give Angular the work of creating an instance and giving us the instances that it has created. So this time we won't need to worry about the instance being the same, because it's going to give us the same instances, because the instance is only created once. So the next time a component says that, hey, I need an instance of this, we'll first check inside the container. Do you have an instance? Yes. Return that instance, else create. So ADI is, let me try to draw something that can help us understand, is assuming I have this container here. This is a container. And inside this container, things are divided into two. So right here at the top, we have classes. So we can have different classes about, or else let's call them services right now. So we can have a product, service. So we still know that a service is a class. So this can also be classes. And this can be an order service. Lastly, we also have maybe let's add a shipment service. So these are three different services, and right here there is a component. So we have like three components here. So this component wants to know about the products. This component wants to know about the orders and which products. That way. And this component wants to know about the shipment details, order to be shipped, and which products to be shipped, which products are in the order. Right. So it's like the shipment needs details from all these three services because it has a shipment ID. Shipment ID has a product order ID, and the order ID you can know about the products that are in that order ID. So we need to get the shipment ID and the order ID. So we have the shipment ID. So we read a shipment ID, a single shipment ID. And then in the shipment ID, we can get the order ID. So we go to the order service and ask, hey, give me the order that has this ID. So it returns us an order with the details about the products that are inside there. So now, so this component is only interested in, so this component requests something like, hey, add this detail, add this product to an order. And the method to do that is inside the method, the product service, sorry. So what is happening is an instance is created, but this time not as creating the instance. This time is the DI container or Angular with the DI container. So DI container is part of Angular, and other languages have their own containers. So this product requests a certain instance. So now the DI container will go and create the instance for us. So right here we have product instance and order instance. And lastly, we have a shipment instance. So now this requests a product instance, and then this instance is returned. So it gets an instance from there. So that component is sorted. Now this other component requests an order instance. So from this, I want an order instance first to add an order, and then also when I'm getting the order, I want something else, an order instance plus a product instance. So these instances are only created once. And if now this other component requests for order instance, then what is going to happen is that this will get an order instance that is created once again. And if it needs a product instance, then we are going to return the already created instance. So with a DI, there's that common. If you compare two instances, they're going to be the same because we are not going to create new ones. We are just going to check, hey, in the instance pool, is there a new instance? Is there an instance of about a product? If yes, return it. If no, let's create it. In the instance pool, is there an instance about an order? Yes, return it. no, create it. So that will happen, and this will lead us to all having the same instance. That's the work of the DI, is something that is incorporated in Angular core, and its work is just create the instances for us instead of us creating them, and that you have given the control to Angular, and not you don't have the control, you just have the you delegate that duty of creating instances to the container. So your work is just asking for instances, and the DI will give you instances. So that is the work, or our DI container looks. So this is a DI container. The upper part is some classes, and the lower part is some instances about these classes. And one thing about DI is going to help us reduce tight coupling first, and also communication will be better with DIs than it is with input-output approach. So let me go back to my slide and see some of the disadvantages that of instantiating the instance ourselves. First thing is tight coupling, because this instance only belongs to this component only. And if another component has still the same instance, then that instance is not the same with the one component X has. So component A and B have the same, are accessing the same service, but they have two different instances. So if I'm testing this component, then it means that every time I'm testing this, there is difference in the instances, and there's no uniformity in the instances, and that is a downside when it comes to testing and tight coupling. So if we change the service class definition, we also need to update each and every code where the service is being used. So yeah, this is another disadvantage. If we change something in the instance, then we have to update each and every place where the code is being used. So testing is also difficult for this, and the solution for this is dependency injection. So how do we allow a component to use a service? We define a class. This means that we can instantiate and be able to access the properties and methods. So this is the instantiating approach. These are good practice, but not the best. So Angular offers a better tool called dependency injector. The injector creates an instance directly inside the component. So it will just provide the instance that was created by the DI container. And dependency injection first is just a design pattern in which a class receives the instances of object it needs, called dependencies. So these instances are going to be called dependencies, and from an external source rather than creating them itself. So this external source is the Angular dependency injection container. And then it's also a technique in which a class receives its dependencies from, okay, I'm just repeating this. That is the work of a DI container. Most languages that are using this pattern, they have to incorporate those containers for themselves. They have to use all those principles of inversion control and make sure that they provide the best. So we'll talk about this in a few. Any question up to that point? Question? All right. Let's now try to use dependency injection in this example. So instead of importing this first, I'll use something else. So we still have a providers array. A providers array can be found in the component. And again, if we go to the module, we saw this providers array. So this is where our services are housed. But another thing that we are going to see is that where you have the service placed matters. So where you have the service placed matters, and we'll see in a few about that. So here I'm going to say providers, and inside there I'll say provide something, provide for me an instance of a logger service. So I'll just list the services that I need provided, and then I'll just say private logger, and this will be of type logger service. So this is just a shortened initialization about the logger service. So now when I want to use the logger service here, I will add something. I will implement a method on it. So these are lifecycle method. And here I'll add ng. First imported, no. Trade them. And then we add ng on in it. So right here I can say something like logger dot log. So this is still the same, but this time we are not creating an instance. We are leaving that up for the DI container. So what will happen is we're still going to get hello from a service because, okay, ng on init, we know what it does. It will run first after the constructor or later after the ng on changes if there's an input output, but this time it's running the first time because there's no input output and we don't have ng on changes. So it's running first, and what is happening after it runs, it calls this service or sorry method, and then logs the message or accesses a property of this. So what will happen if we comment this? Will we still be able to access the service? Let's see. So you will see this error that this service is not provided. So there's no provider for the logger service. So don't forget about this. But this is not the best approach yet. We still discuss why this is not a good approach. Now, I'm going to add a new component. Generate component, and I'll call this add product. So this is a component that will just allow us to add a product. We can design it real quick, though I'm not the best designer here. Let's see. How many inputs do I need? Our component iko na nini sa tiers, a name, description, price, and image. So I need around 4. Okay. Name. And we are going to use what is it called? Template variables. So input, still have a type text. Then I'll have an hash sign there for template. And we can just close this at that point. We'll copy this several times, like 4 times. Then I'll have an image. We'll just be adding an image URL. So image. And then I have, right, I should have a description before an image. I'm not going to upload this image anywhere. It's just paste a link, but you already know how to upload these. So with the TypeScript code that we worked on. And again, we are not dealing with databases, so this is just dummy data. Change this to number. And then again, So this is our table. Oh, sorry, not table, but form. And then I can have a button there, which will say submit data. So let's go to Rocket and get some images. Don't know anywhere else where I can get clear images. So let me just use this guy's images about Moses. I'll just have a keyboard one. So let me see which one I can use. This one. Yeah, let me try using this one. So that will be the image there. And then what now is remaining is some styling. So I'll give this of content. All right, let's style this now. Dot content with a display flex, flex wrap of wrap. And then I'll go to the left one. I give it a width. Of 300 pixel. Give it a height around 400 pixel. So they both have the same. I'll give these nothing else. No, I don't need anything else. For this side, I'll give it a display flex, a flex call a direction column. I'll give it some gap of around 10 pixel. And yep, I will go right here, right, and inputs. I'll give it a padding 10. Again, the right on button. I'll give it a padding 10 pixel, 15. So this might be March, pixel 15. Border style of none, a background color of coral, and a color of white. So this is on, not all, but let's say left the image, and I want it to occupy the width of 100% and the height of 100%. Let's see how this looks. So I'll have the component there, add product, import it in my app.ts, and you can see how this looks. So right now, this is how it looks. Not the best. So we just need some few padding here and there and alignment. So I'll be back where here. I'll say justify content. Then for the width for this one, I can give around 400 pixel. And let's say a gap of around. So yep, that is what we have right now. We'll give the right one, justify content. And I'll also add an H1 here. New product. So done with the styling, done with the template. Now I have this form, and we just work with that. That's all I can provide now. Maybe even also increase the size, and right, that's all. So we have this, and this is the form that we'll be using to submit our data here below here. So now this is a new component, and this is another new component that we have. So we're supposed to add data in the add product component and display it in the product display component. Right. So right now we need a service, and this side this time a service that is a data service. So I'd shown you how to create a service from scratch. This as you can see here is software service, valid one, but it doesn't have a decorator. So let's try to create a service at the from the terminal this time. So I'll say ng g s g for generate, s for service, and I'll call it product. It's good to name your services with a capital letter, just a convention though. So this is a product service, and it comes with an injector and something here called providing route. All right, this is not a bad approach, but don't know if I can do away with this first and just have injectable. I'll explain what is providing route later on. So this is a product service, and now this reminds me that we are moving data from products to the service. So this data that we have here should not be there. It should be in our service, and we are supposed to provide to this component. So data is managed there. So this is the dummy data that we had, and all we just need is to import this type. And I'll make this private for a reason. You can tell me why this should be private. So before we finish writing this service, think of it of why we are making it private, and you can type on the chat, or later on maybe I'll give each and every person a chance to say that why they think this should be private, not public. Public is the default way, so you don't need to say the private keyword. All right, I'll have two methods, one for add data, add product. So this is the method we will call from our component when we add to add data. So this receives an argument of product of type product. So this type is type of product because this is the interface that we are using for a single product. Right here is a product array because there's an array that is storing product objects. So inside here, all we just need to say is this dot product dot push product. So to add a new product, sometimes let's get products. To get a product, we just need to return these products, and that's all. So those are the two methods right now we have. We can also have for delete, those kind of things. But right now we have this. Maybe a few will add more methods. So right now our product component is complaining, saying that I'm supposed to get products. Where am I supposed to get these products from? Okay, so I will introduce these products. That is just the variable. So now it stops complaining because it can see a product variable right here. But this is empty. And if we go right here, we don't see anything, it's empty. So now we want to rate these products from the service that we have. And first thing that we said is we are supposed to provide this service inside the providers first. And I'll explain why we are supposed to do that. So right now we say product service. And again, inside the constructor, we say provide me an instance of. So this is where you are asking for an instance. Give me an instance of product service. And you just need to say the type is product service. So a type of a service is just the same type that we have. And let's say when this component is being initialized, because we know that when the component is being initialized, the view is not yet initialized. So initialization of the component comes first before the view is initialized. So this will be a safe space of asking the service, hey, give me the data before the views are initialized by the ng on view initialized. So on view init, sorry. So right now, the empty array, we can pre-populate it with data by saying products is equals to, and then we say this dot product services dot get products. So this much because our get products here, if we can go here and type it, strong type it actually, which will be a good thing, we can say this returns a product array. And this is going to return void, which doesn't have any return type. So our product service right now is getting the products from the service. Does this solve the issue? Let's see. Yeah, it looks like it does, because we have a provider, we have everything that we need. All right, let's now work on adding this new product, since we have worked on getting them from the service. So how do we add these new products? So I'll go to collapse this and go right here. So first thing, I need to get a name from some. So we talked about view child yesterday. So today I love to use the view child approach, though it's a long approach, but I love to use it. So let's say view child, and I'm supposed to give it the name of the template name, and I'm storing that here. And this view child should be imported there from the top. So this is going to select something. So it expects a selector, and it's supposed to select from the template that we have. So in our template we have this here, which is a template variable or a reference to that. So you can say we'll have a view child, and this is of type element, because what it's supposed to give us is a reference to that element. So that's why the name element ref. So we are just getting a reference to that element. Let me add on init so that we can see this object, what is going to look like on init on it. So I'll also require it from add it from Angular core, and right here I can say on init. And actually Richard won't work on init, so that's a wrong method. We should go to after. Should be after view. Let me import this first after. view initialized. So view initialized, and we just need to say after view initialize. Hope you are getting why I'm not using ng on in it, because at time the view is not yet loaded. So yeah, I'll just log to the console. This dot name. So let's see what happens. All right, I get a reference to this element here, and we have a native element, and you can see it's automatically seen that these are reference to an input element. And with an input element, we are going to get all the properties that an input element has, including value here, which right now it's empty. So if I try to change, which is going to, okay, it's not going to cause a re-render right now, but if I change this, I can read the new value from there. So that is a good approach, and we are going to use this. So I can just say native element. First, get me the element, and then I can say dot value. So right now we are going to get an empty string, since our product does nothing. Maybe if we could have submitted this by our on click event, we'll get the value that we have here. But right now, not yet. But I was just showing you that we are going to use that approach and what that object of is going to look like. So now need to reference this or duplicate this, and I have a reference for image. I have a reference for I'm supposed to update both. Just to check if it's a small letter, and you have description here. I'll change these and these to description, and lastly we have price. So let me copy these, and I can change these to price that way. So now I have a reference to all the elements. This means that I can add a click event to this button. So when it's clicked, it can submit the data. So when it's clicked, call this method add product. I'm passing nothing because I can read this from the other side. So don't know why this is not giving an error, expected an error that this method doesn't exist. It's not, or does it exist? No. So let's just add the method there and save. So don't know why this is happening. And how this app is running. Okay, it's giving us errors, but it's not showing us. So let's just correct that. I had worries about that. So I'll first say what inside the constructor. Remember, we are doing this inside the constructor because why? The constructor is the first method. It's the first thing that is executed. So inside the constructor, we can get a instance of this. So we can say private product is of type product. And again, we need to add a providers there. And this is not a good approach. I'll just show you why it's not a good approach. And yeah, let's say product service. Okay, seems like I have everything. I'll just say this dot product service dot add product. And here, remember, I'm supposed to provide an array. So the first thing is a name that I'm supposed to provide. So I'll say this dot name dot native element dot value. So that is done. Secondly, description. Same case, I'll say, let's copy this. I won't write it 4 times. So the second thing I'm supposed to provide is a description. So just press write them and write them. The third thing is an image there. And the first thing is a price. So I have all this. Still complaining why is it not assignable to type of name, description, image, price. Okay, I may strong type these or typecast as string. All right. Our string is not assignable to type number. We can check these and typecast it as number then. Mhm. Okay. So let's see. First thing, I'll love to look at the service at the interface. So price is a number. Okay, awesome. This dot native element dot value, because we know that this is just going to be a value is always going to be a string. I need to typecast it to a number. I don't know why its number is not accepting this. Don't want to change this to be a string though. And also my unary operator is not accepting this. Okay. Um, I might end up changing this first to string so that it doesn't block us, but I'll rectify that. Use type any for now. No, can't go type any. I'll just change this to string and that affects what? Yeah. Export, which was not declared here on type products. So let's see. Let me see if I can counter this. Just a minute. Let, or not even let, p is equals to this. Can I use constant? P is equals to this, and then I can say plus p. Okay, I'll just have to work with strings then. Dot value dot string. Let's try this. Will we need to typecast if we say that? Okay, we don't need to. Um, all right, I'm just going to change this type to be a string also. So it will start by here saying this is a string. Going to waste our time. And then product, is it complaining? Okay, add product will be this type then. Still complaining, argument of type name string, image string, price string is not assignable to type. Property category. Okay, we are missing a category. Okay, let's just add code and say what? Say, let's say electronics. Right. Right now, let's see the error that is happening here. Is on where price is a string. Why did I say that? I just need to do away with this method actually. And that, so this error is gone. All right. I guess we are done with this now, so we can now check on the service. So also delete this. Is an now, so we still have an error. Product service. Okay. Let's see the service here. Product service right here, whereby we have price, and we're just going to change this. All right. Now there should not be any other error. Okay. So now we have these two, and one thing we have added it to image instead of. Okay, let me see that. We have this dot price. What do you mean by that? I've added it to image. Okay, let's just work with this first. When I press this, I want, before we even send this to the service, okay, we don't have to do that. Let's just send the service. And the second thing that I'll do immediately after that is I just say this dot product service dot products. Then let's test this now. We have our form here, so we can say mouse description, maybe a rocket mouse. Image, let's get a mouse image here. Or why don't we add a key mouse? So that can be the image and the price can be 300. So when I submit this data, seems like we never got this, but this data was actually submitted, I'm sure. So I can even log it from where? From the service, so that we can see it was submitted. So going back here, we can log this data from here and say product, the product that we are receiving. So let's see if that works. If we have something, a description there, an image, and 400, submit this data. Yeah, so from the service, and you can see these are from the product service, we can get this data. So this means that the pushing was successful and everything. But can we see this product? Let's see. It is not there. That now is an issue again. What will happen is, what is happening here is the levels. And where you have provided this matters. That's why I was against providing it in the components. So first thing, if I provide this in the component, it means that when each component is being created, yes, we still have the same instance, but when each component is being created, it overrides the instance that was there. So each component here is accessing the same thing, but they are overriding. So if we could want this provider to work better, maybe we could move an higher notch, let's say like from parent component. So we have several levels of where we need to provide this instance. So we have child level, where we were now providing it is a child level. We have a parent level, and we also have a module level. So child level means that same instance of the service is provided. Okay, for each and every child, same instance of the services are available at this component only. Because if you can remember something about component, we said that component are private. So they still have the same instance, but this is private to this component. Taking it and level higher means that the same instance of the service is available for the parent component and the child component. So taking it higher, it means that we have the same instance for both the parent and the child component. And taking it to the app module means that we have this same instance available application-wide. Now, our case, we don't need to take it to the module right now, but we may need to do that later for better practices and not getting unnecessary errors. So I'll move it to the app and say providers, because the app is the parent of both components. So it makes sense as providing it in the app module, but not 100% the best solution, but 80% solving the problem that we have right now. For product service. Okay, let's see if this is now going to work then. We have a mouse. We have and I have this image here. The price of 300. Submit. So we see, yeah, I mistyped that. We see the mouse being added and more mouses can be added right now. So these two are now having the same instances. So we don't overwrite the instance that we had by having another provider in the child. So this means that if I have another provider in one of the child element, it overrides the instance that I had. It doesn't create a new one, it overrides the instance that I had. Having it in the parent level is a good practice, but not the best practice. So what is the best practice? The best practice is having this in the application level, but that means that this instance is available is accessible from anywhere inside this application. So our application has we need to go to the module first, right here, and we also see the providers array. So this is where you can line up all your services that you want them to be available application-wide. So I'll have product service right there. And this means now I can still add everything and it's available application-wide. So any component can access now our service. That is for a case where you need all the component to access your service. For a case where you need only the parent and the child component, then you can provide it at the parent level. For a case where you just need it on one component, you can provide it at component level. So these are the three levels and how you can provide them. And as you can see, also providing it at the parent, at the rootmost level works. Now, let me go back. Let me remove this here and go back to our service. And right here, we had this property called provided in, and we say root. So it is a enum. You can see you just get several options or a string literal. I don't know, maybe one of those two. You can only provide in the root or any or platform. So providing this in root, and remember we have deleted this service from the providers array, means what? Let's see if it will work. So we have mouse, draw cut, mouse, an image there, and 500 for our mouse. So it is still working. What is now happening then that is different? We don't have any service listed in any part, in any array of the providers is that, but we have this text here that we added, provided in root. When something is provided in root, it means that it's provided application wide also. So instead of having to repeat yourself by also passing the service in the, not repeating by, instead of having to pass the service in the app component, app module, which you can still do, and it will still work. And this is not a bad practice, still works, but this is just a short and a simple way to say that this service is available application wide. So it means that providing root means that if I'm providing something in root, it means that the root is the top level. So it's being provided at the module level. All right, that is how services work. So that is just, we are dealing about the scope of a service, and you can see that services that are provided in the root module or are application scoped. This means that they can be accessed from anywhere, any component within the app. Any service provided at other modules other than lazy loaded modules also available application-wide. We'll talk about this when we subdivide this application into modules. Services that are provided in lazy loaded module, again, that is part of module, are only scoped and available in the lazy loaded module. That is also part of module. Services provided at the component level are available only to the component and to its child component. So if the component does not have a child, then that means that it's only available to that component alone. Provided in, instead of adding a service to the providers of the app module, you can also do with this, and it will add it to the app module still. So what we have here right now is repetition. There's something in Angular called shaking a tree, I think. that will just remove the unnecessary things. So this is so unnecessary when we say provided in root. All right, that's about services. Maybe something I never touched on is this, how this process happens. First, we have several things in these services. A consumer is the component that want to use that service. The dependency is the service itself. Injection token, these are unique identifier for each and every dependency, or a unique identifier for each and every instance that we have. A provider, it maintains the list of the dependencies alongside their injection token. So it's just a unique ID first and a list of all dependencies. So we have seen providers in component, in parent component, and also at the root level, and also we can also see it provide it by adding provided in root. And lastly, an injector. The injector is just responsible for creating the dependencies for you and just giving it to the consumer. So that is now the behind the scenes of Angular and how this is going to happen. So the injector uses an injection token to search for the dependency. So if I want a dependency about a product, then that means that it checks the ID that was given to that dependency, and then from the ID we can get the instance if it exists. If there's no ID, it's created and it gets an ID, and then we get back the instance back to us. All right, that means that I'm almost done with this part. Let me take questions. Anything you never understood, let me know. Questions. Any place you never understood.
Hello.
Uh,
For me, I got lost.
well,
Um, when you were explaining about the services, there are some approaches that you did not recommend. So I would like you to highlight on the approach that you recommend, and also repeat maybe after you create a service, the first thing that you need to do until all it's working.
okay. Um, for the recommended and not recommended, is not more of recommended and not recommended, is what works for the application that you have. So we started by having a logger service. For example, I have a service, and this service is only needed for one component. So this means that I have no business providing this service application-wide because it's needed by one component. So instead of providing that, instead of providing this service application-wide, we provide it at component level. So you can have the providers here and say product service. And this is okay. But now this means that if there was an instance that was created at the parent level or the app module, it's overridden by this one. So if the service is needed for one component and only one component, use this approach. For only this component. Now, in our case, this is a product component, and it's also sharing data with other components. or else we also depending on add component to give us the data of the products. So this means that this service cannot be provided at this level because we depend on other services. So now we move a level higher and see maybe I can provide this at this other at a top level so that the add product and the product component share the same services and is not overridden on the way. So overridden happens when you provide a service at the bottom level and also a service at the top level. So the service at the top level will be overridden by the service at the bottom level. So in this case, we decide to move a level higher. So we go to app component and see that these two components are children of the app component. So this means that it makes sense to provide this service here. So providing this service here will work for our case because these the two components are children of the. So this works for our case because as we go back here, these two child components or these components are child component of this component. So this means that we can request for the service at this level and the child can still use the instance that was created at this level without us overriding it. But if now we provide these and this here at the parent level and at the child level, the instance that will be provided by the parent will be overridden by this instance that is provided at the child level. So it's just a approach which you don't want to use for this case because you want the instance to be shared between the two components. At this level is only for this component only. So we move higher to the app component and create an instance there. So this works 100%. And our app won't break because these two child components are part of the app component. But now, assuming you had different modules, but different modules mean that a component might not belong to the app module. So right now we are working with one module, the app module. But maybe if we subdivide our application into different modules like product module, order module, shipment module, it means that the component, because a component can only belong to one module. So this means that a component cannot be in the app module and in the shipment module. It has to belong to one of those two. So if a component in the shipment module needed our service right now and is provided here, and the component is not part of app module right now because it's part of another module that is the shipment module, then it can't be able to access this service. So this will be wrong. So now we need to provide this service at a application-wide level. So providing it here means that this service is available application-wide because also those other modules will be imported here. So this means that this service is available application-wide. But now going back to our service, there's this part. First, the injectable means that this is a decorator, which means that this service can be used by another service. That is a part that I've not yet covered, but we'll talk about it. Service can be used or injected as a dependency by another service. And right here we say provided in root. provided in root means that this service is application is available at the root level, and our root level is app module. So this is a repetition. So we just remove the service from there and say our product service is provided in root. That means our product service is available application wide. So those are the different stages. When I'm saying it's not recommended, I meant it's not recommended for the application that we are building, and it won't work for the application that we are building, but it might work at a different stage and level. Obed, and then we'll go to the questions in the chat.
So when you're done with the application and you've uploaded it to GitHub, now someone else wants to clone your app and initialize the dependencies.
Mhm.
Okay, because okay, first, when you use provided in root, does it update to maybe, let's say, I haven't seen a config file in Angular, I think, or maybe they're using the app module for that. Okay, just
First
open
thing,
the.
when we say about dependencies, there's a difference between dependencies and libraries. So
Oh,
when you are doing
okay.
git init is adding the libraries, not the dependencies. Dependencies is just normal code. So it does not have anything to deal with libraries that are used in this project. So init is for libraries. Dependencies are just used for the services to say that I'm injecting a dependency or I'm injecting a service. So instead of saying I'm injecting a service means that I'm using this service in this component, we say that I'm injecting a dependency. So it's just a conflict on the way these terms are used in different ways. Dependency first means a service. Just say dependency is just a service. So if you upload this code on GitHub, then it means that we all wrote normal JavaScript, Angular code, and it can run in any device, provided that maybe unless you talk about backend and anything. But right now, if I send you this code, it will run the same way, because this code is just a normal TS Angular code. Service don't require anything external. All right, let me go back to some questions on the chat. When will we cover best practice and bad practice in Angular? Sounds you have been following and recommended one so much. There's nothing unrecommended right now. It's just which works for your case. Maybe I misused that word recommend and recommended. It's just which works why at which case. Best and bad practices, we are improving each and every day. So at the end of the day, you'll know which is the best practice, because right now, you know the best practice, you know when to use input output, and you know when you need a service. So slowly but slowly, you are getting when this is needed and when this one is needed more. So that is now you understanding a best practice, and I won't say a bad practice. There's no bad practice, but a practice that is not needed right now. So the reason why you have used private class is because you don't want the child to access the services and override the instance of the parent app. All right. Did you mean about this question that I posed to you right here about having a private property? Yes. Okay. So the reason why you have used private class is because we don't want the child to access the services and override the instance. I feel you have confused two things. First thing, an instance and a property. An instance can be overridden only and only if you have, let's say, you have providers in the parent level and providers in the child level, that you are overriding an instance. But right now, we are talking about a property. So a bit of confusion there between an instance and a property. I need you to talk about a property, not an instance. An instance is overridden when you have two providers, one at the parent level or one at the module level and another one at the component level. That means that the one at the component level will override the one that came from the parent level or the app module level. And same case, the one at the app module level will be overridden by the one at the parent level downwards. So maybe you talk about properties right now, not instances. I hope you get the difference now between those two first. Yes. All right. I still need the answer to this. Why is my property private? Don't overthink it. It's a simple one. Injecting services into a service. Sometimes you want to communicate from, okay, you want to get data from one service and you're in a different service. For instance, we have two services here. I have a logger service, and let's say I need to pass a message of type string and log it here. What am I doing? I'll say log to the console, the message right there. Assuming I might want to use this service, and each and every time we add a product here in the product service, I want to call that service and log some message. First thing, I need to inject the service now in a service. So injecting still a logger, and this will be of type logger service. But right now, instead of saying this output, I can just say this dot logger dot log. I pass a message saying that product added by this and see. We first get an error. Say that expected 0 argument but got 1. So let's go to our logger and see that we're expecting a string. Don't know why it's not detecting this. But one thing is that if you want a service to be used in another service, you must first add one thing, the injectable. Injectable means that this service can be injected in other services. So I'll add an import there. And actually that was the issue. So you can see it's solving that. I wanted it first to give us an error about that. So that is being solved. This means that each and every time I add a product right now, we still have this breaking, and this service is not provided. So we are not using provided in root. We can use it because just provide this service application wide, and right now that will be done and it will work better. So let's submit some data, and we're expecting to get a message, and this message is being logged from a different service. Um, so you can see we're getting the message and our product is right here. It's being added to the system. So those are two services communicating with each other. You may need them to communicate with each other. So just know that the takeaway is that apart from the providing and everything, it must have this decorator of injectable. Otherwise, they won't communicate. All right. Don't know. Let me go back to the first time you are creating a service all the way to using it. I think that was part of an honest mass question. So a service is created first. You can choose to do it manually yourself, or else you can choose to generate it using the terminal. So to generate it is ng generate service, the name of the service, or ng gs service, gs the name of the service. So a service is created, and these different services have different roles. And one of the roles that we have here, since we are creating a data service is a service that is just handling data. We need first thing to come up with where are we storing our data. Right now, we haven't covered interaction with a backend, so we are still using arrays. So we are storing our data in an array. So that's the first step. When we cover backend, we won't need this array. We need to store our data in a database, full data from our database. So this is just because we are storing it here. This constructor right there is used because I'm injecting another service here. So that's the part of the construct. Now, we want to be able to modify this array by adding a new product. So I define a method which you can use to add a new product right there. I haven't validated this data. I'm just assuming the user is going to send me a great validated data. We'll cover validation in forms. So I add the data, I push it to the array. The third thing, the second, third or fourth, when I want to get the product, since this is private, I can't access it directly. But if it wasn't private, I would have accessed it directly. So you need to tell me the downside of accessing something directly and not. So right now, since it's private, I need a method that can be able to return this data. And that is the method that we apply there. It returns this data. So now the other part is giving the add product component giving us data, and the get product component getting the data and displaying it. So this product component needs to inject that dependency. So, or ask for an instance, sorry, not inject, but ask for an instance. So this is where we ask for the instance of the product service, and it will be provided according to the levels. If I had providers here, then I'm using this level. If it's in the parent, I'm using that level, or the instance that was created at that level. If it's in the app module, then I'm using the instance that was provided or created at the app module. So I get that, and right here, when the component is being initialized, I call the service to give me the products. So I call the get products method and save this product in this variable that we have defined there. So that's getting the product. Now, adding the product here is now we are sending data to the service. So first thing, we get these references to the elements. And second thing, again, we get the instance. If it was created, we just get the instance that was created at the top level. If we had providers here, then it's going to recreate this instance and override the one we had. And then we send the data that we are reading from all these elements to the service through a method called add product. So we call the service and add products, send it, and this was unnecessary. Right there, we send our data to the service, the data is saved, and when we are getting again, since it's the same shared instance, then it means that the data is up to date. And that's all about services and how they are working. Kindly recommend us material for Angular part from their apart from their site to make the understanding in class easier. You can use plural site. Plural site is the best, not the best, one of the best. And when you type Angular here, just go to this lady called Deborah Crad. So you can see, just go to Angular getting started. Right now you will see this overview. Introduction to components, templates, data binding and pipes, more on components, building nested components, service and dependency injections. That's where we are right now. So routing will come later, HTTP client will come later, building, testing. Oh yeah, but this you need login, so I'll also send log. You guys, let me see. You need logins. You can use the G2 logins there. Let me send them. So those are the logins. They don't come in a few. Is it free? Use these logins. And they have an offline version. So si lazima ukuwe na internet. Maybe at the weekend when una net and everything, you can just come to the, okay, you leave the office, you have everything downloaded, and you can use the offline version to play the videos. So ukitaka offline utasearch tu hapa. Super. Utasema tu site. So utakamu download this app for Windows, let's say. Install it. So kisha install this download button. Itakuwa inaangalia if you have an offline version, it will just give you that option. So you can see for my case itanipea. Open through the site and you'll see this. So you just wait for it to download. and then you can play it offline. Any question? This marks the end of it. We meet for the next session at 11:30. 12.